The government was distributing husbands, 20 copper coins each. All the village girls rushed to get men. I didn't go. Because I had been reborn. I knew that the crippled man who was so worthless no one would buy him would become the all-powerful regent chancellor in the future. He would betray my true feelings, take many wives and concubines, and imprison me for 10 years, humiliating me night after night. I didn't dare buy him, I just wanted to live peacefully. But I never expected that night, the village chief would knock on my door with a smile. "Cece, do you want a husband?" Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Bang! I immediately slammed the door shut. Standing by the door, I felt dazed. This must be an illusion. How could I see Pei Xian again after being reborn? The village chief pushed open the door and looked at me with displeasure and confusion. "Cece, what's the meaning of this? You think he's no good because others rejected him? No worries. As the village chief, I will give you a discount 10 copper coins. How about it?" As he spoke, the village chief pulled me outside. Pointing at the extremely weak man leaning against the wall, he spoke generously. "Didn't you always like handsome young men? Look how good-looking he is. Though he's a half-dead cripple, he'll be useful once cleaned up." Pei Xian was badly injured, his face dirty and clothes tattered, looking truly miserable. He leaned against the wall, quietly raising his eyes to look at me. His gaze was innocent and vulnerable. Yet that look still gave me chills for no reason. "No, if no one buys him, can't you just send him back to the government?" I thought since I didn't go, Pei Xian who no one bought would have been sent back to the government by now. How? How come you're delivering people to doors? Clear Spring Village was located in a remote border region at the boundary between two countries. Most of the men had been forcibly conscripted into the army and never returned. With poor weather and soil conditions, it was difficult for the elderly, weak, women and children in the village to meet the harsh grain and tax requirements. The government was short on money and grain, so sometimes under the banner of showing consideration for the people's circumstances, they would send over some criminals who had been exiled here for hard labor. 20 copper coins could add a strong laborer to the family. It was worth it no matter how you calculated it. So whenever the government distributed people, it would always cause a scramble. In my previous life, I went too. I had no money, just went to watch the excitement. Unexpectedly, I got an incredible bargain. For 10 copper coins I bought home a severely injured but extremely handsome crippled man. At the time everyone in the village laughed at my foolishness. This person is so badly injured, buying him home, forget about helping with work, he might not even survive. Even if he lives, with that cold and arrogant look in his eyes, he won't be an easy one to handle. I didn't listen, brought him home, and carefully nursed him back to health. No one expected that not only did the crippled man survive, he treated me extremely well. He served me tea and water, earned scholarly honors for me, achieved military merits for me. Oh no, to be precise, it wasn't for me, he was deceiving me. Because it wasn't until the day he married another woman that I finally woke up. It turned out his kindness to me was only because by marrying me, he could be freed from slave status, take the imperial examinations, and leave Clear Spring Village. What I thought was love and sweetness was actually just endurance and humiliation to him. This person had never loved me at all. What nonsense are you talking about? How could the government take back people they abandoned? The village chief was also worried. In previous years there was always a scramble with none left over, never this troublesome situation. Who knew this year there would be complications over a cripple? This person, even if we're stuck with him, we absolutely cannot send him back. The village chief looked up at me after speaking. Seeing me silent and staring blankly, thinking I felt it was too expensive, he gritted his teeth. 5 copper coins. Can't go any lower. No, this isn't about the money. 1 copper coin. Sir, I really can't take this person, Cece, the village chief cut me off with an unhappy expression. When I took you in back then, did I say a single extra word? I was immediately speechless. The hardest debt to repay in life is that of kindness from others. Once you accept it, you'll forever be indebted. Over these years as I practiced medicine in the village, treating countless ailments and saving many lives, I still could never repay the village chief's kindness of taking me in during that snowy night. All right. I sighed and agreed, not noticing that Pei Xian, who was leaning against the wall, lowered his eyes with a relieved expression. If you keep staring at me and you'll lose those eyes. As the bandage wrapped around Pei Xian's chest. We were extremely close, our breaths seemingly intertwined. Without looking up, I could feel his gaze. Pei Xian froze, his clean handsome face showing confusion. "Cece." After tying the bandage, I cut off the excess, stood up and stepped back. With an indifferent expression. "You shouldn't call me Cece, just address me as Miss Qin." "But you bought me." Pei Xian's tone grew urgent. "I should marry you." "Huh, so eager, afraid he won't be able to escape his slave status without marrying me, I suppose." Convicted criminals who became slaves were meant to remain slaves for generations. But now, if someone purchases and redeems them, they could be registered as farmers and start anew. Such opportunities were rare, no wonder he's trying everything, so desperately. In the flickering candlelight, I gazed into Pei Xian's ink-black eyes. This man truly had a beautiful pair of eyes. When he looked at me like this, it was easy to mistake the deep affection in his eyes as genuine. Unfortunately, it was all fake. "I will help you escape your slave status. But not as a husband, as an elder brother. From now on, we'll address each other as siblings." Pei Xian immediately frowned, his voice low. "Siblings?" I lowered my eyes with a slight smile. "Yes, siblings. In my previous life, I was foolish and presumptuous." On his wedding day, I packed my belongings and left heartbroken, planning to spend my remaining days in Clear Spring Village. But he intercepted me with his troops and forcefully brought me back. He frowned, appearing extremely tired, and sighed. "Cece, you should understand, given my current position as regent, my wife cannot be a village woman. Stop making trouble, come back with me. I'll give you everything except the position of my wife." Of course I refused. But when did he ever listen? He imprisoned me in a villa in the suburbs, keeping me as his nameless mistress. For 10 years. Until his wife could no longer tolerate it and forcefully broke in with others, drowning me in a cage. Pei Xian's chest heaved several times, his tone harsh. "We won't be siblings." I looked up at him in surprise. "What? So he still wants to use me as his plaything for relief when lonely in the village? Pei Xian, you really are something." "No, we cannot be husband and wife." "Why not?" "Because I have a fiancé." I lowered my head, touching the lover's knot at my waist. "They all say he died on the battlefield, but I firmly believe he will return." Pei Xian's eyes trembled violently as he sat up from the bed. The movement was too large, causing the freshly bandaged wound to seep red again. But he showed no pain, just stared at me intently. His gaze as cold and obsessive as in the later years of my previous life. "You have a fiancé?" I met his gaze without flinching, my expression calm. "Yes, I do. I truly did have one. His name was Lu Zhe, the eldest son of the wealthy Lu family in town. We met at school, grew up together, almost childhood sweethearts. 4 years ago, Lu Zhe was forced to join the army. He never returned. This was common at the border, and over time an unwritten rule emerged. If your fiancé didn't return in 3 years, the engagement is void. So my purchase of Pei Xian wasn't inappropriate at all. Later, in our daily interactions, I was moved by Pei Xian's superb acting and left Clear Spring Village with him. When we left, Lu Zhe had not returned. Perhaps he really did die. But it doesn't matter. In this life, if I insist on waiting for him, who can say anything about it? Either we become siblings, or you remain a slave, choose one? I said, raising an eyebrow. Tilting my head to look at the gloomy-faced Pei Xian, I felt mockery in my heart. He was naturally displeased. After all, a sister couldn't be used for pleasure and warming his bed. And indeed, after hearing my options, Pei Xian's thin lips immediately pressed tight. His suppressed gaze fixed on me, the candlelight flickering in his black pupils. His chest heaved several times, his Adam's apple bobbing as he forced out one word through his throat. "Siblings." Not surprising at all. I curved my lips into a smile, packed up my medicine box, and walked towards the door. Before closing it, I looked back at him. Rest well, brother. Pei Yixian immediately clenched his fists. The door closed, and the room fell into silence. Among the crackling of candlelight came Pei Yixian's gloomy, low voice. Heh, the damn brother. That night, I dreamed of my past life where I was imprisoned. In the first half, I was trapped in Clear Spring Village as an orphan girl repaying a debt of gratitude. In the second half, I was confined in a grand mansion as Pei Yixian's hidden mistress, his lowly forbidden plaything. That life where I only lived until my 30s. I never saw the extreme cold of winter, the refreshing rain, or the free and vast mountains and rivers. A sudden knock at the door pulled me from my dream. The moment I opened my eyes, I felt the weightlessness of flying high and suddenly landing. As my breathing steadied, one word pulsed in my mind: freedom. Cece, I made some porridge, get up and have some. Pei Yixian's voice came from outside the door. My pupils constricted slightly as I formed a plan. Last night you said you were the son of a duke whose family fortune was seized. The porridge was well made, smooth and fragrant. I looked up at Pei Yixian. So, you can read? Pei Yixian pressed his lips together and nodded. Yes. Very good. I pointed to the bookshelf in the study. There's a herbal medicine manual on the bookshelf. I'll trouble you, brother, to compare the text and illustrations in the book. And pick out the nota ginseng, gastrodia and angelica from the medicine cabinet. Then lay them out in the winnowing basket in the courtyard to dry in the sun. If I remember correctly, there will be an opportunity to make money soon. I need money to leave this place. Pei Yixian seemed surprised by my arrangement. After a pause, his expression turned awkward. But I'm still injured, and my leg. If you can limp around making porridge, you can limp around drying herbs. In any case, I gave him a cool look. I don't keep idle people. Surely you won't prove the saying you get what you pay for, right? A lame man no other village girl wanted, sold to me at a discount. Harboring ulterior motives, putting on a false front to scheme against me, using me as a stepping stone. Isn't that exactly getting what you pay for? A defective good bought for a penny. Surely I shouldn't treasure him like I did in my past life? He should do some work for me now. Pei Yixian's expression froze, becoming quite complex. I couldn't be bothered to figure out his thoughts, and just gave him another cool glance as I stood to leave. But my wrist was suddenly grabbed. Pei Yixian looked at me somewhat nervously. Where are you going? I didn't say I wouldn't do it. I curved my lips in a light smile, jabbing at him with my words. With an extra mouth to feed at home, and a leg that needs treatment. I have to gather herbs to earn money, don't I, brother? What I didn't say was, both escaping Clear Spring Village and traveling the rivers and mountains required money. Although I regularly treated illnesses in the village. In such a tiny place where everyone was familiar, just a few steps in any direction. Getting paid in tofu or vegetables was normal for medical fees. Some would even just grin and consider the debt settled. So my poverty wasn't just for show. Pei Yixian dragged his lame leg back and forth to dry the herbs. His limping figure looked pitiful from any angle. I clicked my tongue, feeling slightly guilty. You're working so hard, why don't you make a request of me? Pei Yixian froze. After a moment of silence, his voice was very soft. Don't call me brother, call me Yixian, all right? My guilt vanished. I sneered, no. I didn't understand why he was so fixated on how I addressed him. As if calling him that way would somehow change our relationship. In my past life, I had clung to him calling him Yixian over and over. Yet he would always frown and call it affected. Telling me to address him as brother in front of others. I indeed did not remember wrongly. 5 or 6 days after that, the barbarians who had been restless began frequent raids on the border. Many soldiers and townspeople were killed or wounded. 3 blood-stopping herbs, nota ginseng, gastrodia and angelica, were in short supply. Market prices increased more than 20-fold. Within 100 miles, only the medicinal herbs in my courtyard were the most abundant. However, I did not raise prices. I wanted to make money, but not profit from national crisis. So I set rules: daily limits per person and quantity, not selling medicine or treating patients beyond that. But even so, I was still exhausted to the point of collapse every day. After seeing off the last patient, I was too lazy to even walk back to my room. I lay directly on the stone table in the courtyard and dozed off. I slept very deeply, and I don't know how long I slept, but what woke me was pressure on my lips. It seemed someone was sighing softly, carefully pressing and rubbing against my lips. Then becoming bolder, slowly invading deeper. I frowned in irritation. With a soft moan, I slowly opened my eyes. Pei Yixian was standing beside me, his hand pressed against his nose as he gave a light cough. "Cici, dinner's ready." I blinked in confusion, touching my lips. For a moment I couldn't tell if it was dream or reality. But it must have been a dream. After all, there was no reason for Pei Yixian to kiss me secretly. "This is bone soup that the madam from next door brought over. She says it's excellent for making soup. Want to try?" Unlike my previous life, the one taking on the role of cooking, hoping each day with different dishes for the other person to take a bite, was no longer me. It had become Pei Yixian. It was simmered on low heat for 2 hours. Pei Yixian ladled me a bowl of soup, watching me with bright eyes. The village chief wasn't wrong. The cripple truly had excellent looks. Once cleaned up, with dark brows and eyes, broad shoulders and narrow waist. Even wearing the coarsest clothes couldn't hide his figure. In just these few short days, many girls who didn't buy him then had deeply regretted it. But I was unwilling to look at his false face. I just lowered my head and drank the soup silently without speaking. The anticipation in Pei Yixian's eyes finally turned dejected. "Cici, you're so warm and friendly with others, why do you have nothing to say to me? How's the soup? Is it good?" As the hot soup slid down my throat, I raised an eyebrow mockingly. "It's good, so what?" No one knew better than me that everything about Pei Yixian came with a price tag. I would have to pay something to deserve his act of eager pleasing. Warm and friendly? In my previous life I gave him double that. But did he care about it in the end? So, Pei Yixian's Adam's apple bobbed, as if comforting himself, "As long as you like it." These words were so fake they made me lose my appetite. Setting down the porcelain bowl, I tilted my head to look at his leg that I had reattached after breaking it, which was still healing. This person only wanted 3 things from being by my side: freedom from slavery, healing his leg, and taking the imperial examination. Now that the first 2 were achieved, only the examination remained, which he seemed to have forgotten and never mentioned again. So what was he trying to get with all this acted tenderness and gentleness these days? What else did I have that he could want? Frowning, I was about to speak when the door was suddenly pounded. The knocking was very urgent. "Dr. Qin. Please save a life, save our Vice Commander Liu." There was clearly a notice hanging on the door saying no patients after 4 p.m. Why were people still knocking at 8 p.m.? I remained seated, not planning to move. This exception could not be made. "Dr. Qin, I know you have rules. But I really have no choice. We're city guards, we fell into a barbarian ambush. Our vice commander was cut 7 times, his life hangs by a thread. All city pharmacies are out of medicine, only you can save him." My heart sank and I suddenly stood up. Without any more hesitation, I quickly went to open the door. I could not let soldiers who protected our homeland die before my eyes. 2 soldiers with injuries on their faces carried in a blood-covered man. In the dim room with flickering candlelight, the man lay on the bed, breathing weakly. His face was covered in blood and mud, features unclear. I gritted my teeth and suddenly tore open his black combat garment. A familiar red item fell from his chest. The lover's knot. Identical to the one hanging at my waist. "Oh right," the soldier said earlier, "Vice Commander Liu. Liu Zhe." My hands started trembling as I drew in a sharp breath. Being reborn wasn't as shocking as this moment of discovering Liu Zhe wasn't dead. Fortunately, I had stockpiled enough medicinal herbs. And fortunately, my medical skills were proficient enough. Liu Zhe was saved. After a night of high fever, he regained consciousness the next afternoon. "Cici." Liu Zhe leaned against the bed, smiling weakly yet gratefully. "It's been a long time." I really didn't know how to respond to those 5 words. The missed connection in the previous life, the reunion in this life. We had so much to explain to each other. Yet it seemed those 5 words were all that could be said. "Let me wipe your face." Turning away, I got up to take the towel from the basin beside the bed, wringing out the water. Sitting back down by the bed, I gently wiped away the bloodstains on his face, gradually revealing that handsome and dignified face. Lu Zhe lowered his gaze to look at his arms and slings around his neck and chuckled lightly. When you were little, you used my clothes to wipe your nose. Now you're wiping my face when we're grown up. Does this make us even? I focused on wiping his cheeks. It's not the same, you can't compare. The door was gently pushed open. Pei Yixian appeared at the doorway carrying food. Seeing the scene inside, his pupils constricted and his expression turned cold as he limped over. Lu Zhe wasn't blind, he could tell something was off about the atmosphere. Cici, who is this? Pei Yixian, I continued wiping without stopping, my elder brother. Pei Yixian let out a cold sneer, his gaze sizing up Lu Zhe. But his words were directed at me. Oh. So this is someone Cici knows? I stopped what I was doing and handed the lover's knot back to Lu Zhe. Then, I looked up and met Pei Yixian's eyes. Brother, this is Lu Zhe, my long-lost fiancé who has returned. The food fell to the ground with the sound of breaking porcelain. The next second, my wrist was violently grabbed. Pei Yixian's face changed dramatically as he yanked me up from the bedside. What did you say? My wrist hurt from his grip, but I couldn't break free despite struggling. The pain made me irritated, and disgust crept into my gaze. I said, this is Lu Zhe, my childhood sweetheart and fiancé. Do you need me to repeat it again? Pei Yixian's pupils suddenly contracted. As if frightened by my look, he slowly released my hand. He stepped back a few paces and took a breath. When he looked up again, his expression had returned to normal. Congratulations, you've finally waited for his return. These words were spoken with extreme calmness and sincerity. It made my heart turn cold. This was Pei Yixian. The Pei Yixian who could hide his emotions deeply and act convincingly. Beneath that mask, no one knew whether he held a knife or candy. But I no longer wanted to know. Pei Yixian said nothing more. After cleaning up the broken porcelain from the ground, he got up and left. As the door closed, inexplicably, a sense of unease welled up in my heart. It came from my understanding of Pei Yixian from my previous life. The calmer he appeared after suppressing his emotions, the more turbulent storms were brewing beneath. I felt that Pei Yixian wasn't emotionless right now. Rather, his eyes looked like he wanted to kill me. Lu Zhe suddenly spoke. I tilted my head, forcing a smile. You must have seen wrong, he was clearly congratulating me. At least, on the surface. Lu Zhe raised an eyebrow. Really? Didn't look like congratulations, more like Geo. I cut him off. Why do you still keep the lover's knot? Lu Zhe's words suddenly stopped. His ears turned suspiciously red, and his manner became awkward. It's a token of our love after all, keeping it as a memento. I laughed helplessly. You disappeared for 4 years without returning. The engagement was annulled. What memento are you keeping? What disappearance for 4 years? What annulment? Lu Zhe immediately grew serious, with hints of frustration and hurt in his expression. Wasn't it you who wrote saying you found a better husband and didn't want me anymore? Then his voice lowered to a mutter. I almost died on the battlefield that day. I was stunned. What letter? As soon as the words left my mouth, I seemed to realize something. I couldn't help but laugh coldly, already guessing the answer. I really thought you had a change of heart. Lu Zhe looked at me reproachfully. In the dim candlelight, the affection in the young man's eyes was clearly visible. My heart skipped a beat. I suddenly realized that such a reunion wasn't really fair. Because for Lu Zhe, our separation was only 4 years. The difference between 16 and 20 years old. I was still his childhood sweetheart who had grown up with him. The person he had cherished since his first awakening of love. His feelings were still in that passionate phase of first falling in love. But for me, it was 30 years in my previous life, a long-gone emotion. In that time when I moved forward alone, I had already buried him in a grave in my heart labeled first love. Then, I fell deeply in love with someone else. Now, even though time had reversed, how could I possibly live up to his youthful devotion? Lu Zhe went to sleep. I rubbed my sore shoulders and returned to my own room. Unexpectedly, as soon as I pushed open the door, a large hand suddenly reached out from inside and pulled me in. My body hit the door panel, and I looked in shock at Pei Yixian, who had me firmly pinned. Pei Yixian? Why are you in my room? What? Not calling me brother anymore? Pei Yixian raised his eyebrows, with a cold smile at the corner of his mouth. Completely different from how he had been these past few days. It felt like his past life self had returned. I took a breath, my voice slightly deep. If you're my brother, you shouldn't enter your sister's room without permission. Let me go, get out. Pei Yixian laughed, nodding in agreement with my words. Yes, an ordinary brother indeed shouldn't. But I never wanted to be your brother. Pei Yixian smiled shamelessly and frankly, my intentions aren't pure. As he spoke, he tightly gripped my waist. His fingers lightly caressed my neck, stroking along the carotid artery. A chill crawled up my spine. I even had the feeling he was sizing up where to bite to kill me directly. Cece, you shouldn't have made me angry. You're also reborn, right? Every hair on my body stood on end. I stared at Pei Yixian in disbelief, wide-eyed. So shocked I even lost the ability to speak. How could this be? Heh, I'm a bit sad, Cece. After your rebirth, you chose not to buy me, to have no more connection with me. It seems you truly hate and resent me. In the previous life, I was a scoundrel. I failed to protect you, failed to cherish you properly. Only after your death did I realize in devastation that all the fame and fortune I pursued was worth nothing compared to you. On the day of my rebirth, I was overjoyed. Even when I discovered you were also reborn. And desperately trying to avoid me, distance yourself from me, give me the cold shoulder, it was fine. I deserve it all, I should bear it. I'm prepared to spend a lifetime pursuing you, making it up to you. I'm changing, I'm trying, Cece. Pei Yixian's expression could no longer be described as merely obsessive. It was more like a twisted, calm madness. But how could you be with someone else? How dare you truly consider being with another person? The feeling of being confined was just like the imprisonment in my past life. I didn't even want to say another word to him, desperately pushing against his shoulders with both hands. But Pei Yixian suddenly gripped my wrists tightly, pinning them to the door panel. The door panel made a bang sound, particularly clear in the quiet night. Lu Zhe's puzzled voice came from next door. Cece? Is everything all right? Just as one word left my mouth, warmth fell on my neck. Pei Yixian unhurriedly kissed my blood vessels, laughing deeply. Why don't you answer? Tell him you're in your brother's arms, being kissed, being touched. Tell him your brother has been lying in that bed where he now sleeps every night recently, finding release thinking of you before falling asleep. All the warmth drained from my body at such extreme shamelessness. I trembled with anger. Past life and present, how much more did he need to humiliate me? My neck was heavily sucked, as Pei Yixian held me tight. Cece, be good, let's start over. Make him leave. Having reached the peak of anger, I laughed instead. Start over? How exactly do we start over? Could it be that after being reborn, a village woman like me would suddenly be worthy of our noble regent? Would you stop having multiple wives and concubines, stop imprisoning me in that suburban villa in the capital? It's too ridiculous. How could Pei Yixian be so self-righteous to think that I resented and hated him just because he supposedly failed to protect me? He was the one who used me and deceived me. He was the one who didn't love me yet kept me locked up as a plaything. Almost all the hurt I suffered came from him. I can. Pei Yixian replied without any hesitation. Cece, I actually never meant to hurt you in the past life. I didn't know you cared so much about status. I thought you understood my good intentions. The court is treacherous, and you're too innocent, marrying you would have harmed you. But that's all in the past. In this life I'll only have you, won't marry anyone else. If you don't like it, I won't take the imperial examinations, won't enter officialdom. We can just live in Clear Spring Village forever, alright? Cece, trust me one more time, alright? No. Whatever good intentions, I don't care, I don't accept. I don't trust him. I only know that his so-called protection was just using and deceiving me in the past life. It was 10 years of being a mistress and imprisonment, treating me with utmost contempt. If stabbing me was supposedly for my own good, then I'd rather he not do me any favors. I can't bear such blessings. Cece? My silence made Pei Yixian nervous, his voice softening. All right? All right. My heart was cold, I was already speechless at such extreme shamelessness. Only a helpless cold laugh remained. Let's start over from the beginning. Hearing this, Pei Yixian immediately let out a long breath. He held me in his arms as if obtaining a precious treasure. His arms trembled slightly. Cece, you've finally come back. Sir, do you want a son-in-law? How about Pei Yixian? He's all cleaned up now, doesn't limp anymore, and is quite handsome. Many village girls are fighting over him. He'd be perfect for your daughter Wanyue. You saved my life, so money isn't important. It's mainly about repaying the debt of gratitude. How about 1 copper coin? At the village chief's house. I placed Pei Yixian's contract on the table, smiling as I discussed business with the village chief. Starting over. I choose a life without Pei Yixian. The village chief frowned, looking at me with displeasure. Cece, what's this about? How can you return someone you bought? I calmly took a sip of tea, slowly raising my eyes. If I say it can be returned, it can be returned. The village chief's face darkened, about to scold me. I leisurely added. Lu Zhe has returned, did you know? The village chief froze. Setting down my teacup, I smiled at the village chief. I remember your daughter Wanyue used to like Lu Zhe. She even threatened to end her own life, wanting me to give up the engagement to her. I felt guilty for quite a while after refusing her then. After all, Wanyue has always had the personality of taking what she wants and destroying what she can't have. But surprisingly, after I refused her that time, she never made a fuss again. I suppose you must have thought of some clever way to console her? The village chief dryly forced a smile and gave a response. Sweat appeared on his forehead. I was laughing inside, but maintained an innocent expression. Lu Zhe also said he wants to visit personally someday, to thank you and Wanyue for your blessing. No, that won't be necessary. The village chief's face suddenly turned pale as he hurriedly took out a copper coin. I'll take Pei Yixian. No need to trouble Lu Zhe. He certainly knows better than to offend the Lu family. By the way, you once saved my life, and I'm returning your daughter a marriage match. That makes us even, right? Why don't we write up an agreement that our debt is settled and we'll have no more ties? To prevent him from changing his mind and bothering me later. The village chief's lips trembled. After his expression changed several times, he finally couldn't help but curse. Ungrateful wretch. When I returned home, Pei Yixian was drying medicinal herbs in the courtyard. Lu Zhe was lying on a nearby lounge chair, sunbathing. It looked like a harmonious scene. But in reality, their conversation was hostile. I'm not her brother. Pei Yixian spoke first after laying out the herbs in a winnowing basket. Lu Zhe opened his eyes, his voice lazy, I can tell. If you have something to say, say it. Pei Yixian was brief and direct, name your terms, anything goes. I just want her. Lu Zhe smiled, what a coincidence, I only want her too. Pei Yixian's lips twitched as he spoke vilely. Even if I was her first man? My face instantly turned pale. My fists clenched at my sides as my body trembled. Shameless! How dare he bring up things from my past life with people in this life? Tisk. Lu Zhe frowned. In that moment, shame completely overwhelmed my heart. Only a worthless man would boast about taking a woman's virtue. So what if you were her first? Was she your first woman? Pei Yixian came from a noble family background. Having servant girls in his bed was common. How could I possibly have been his first? Pei Yixian's face darkened, his previous smugness gone. Oh, she wasn't? Then how dare you brag? Lu Zhe sneered in contempt. Too shameful that you couldn't even save your first time for the woman you love. I listened until I could barely breathe. Perhaps it had been too long since I'd seen him. Or perhaps Lu Zhe appeared too calm and aloof on the outside now. So much that I'd truly forgotten how sharp-tongued he was as a child, famous for his ability to provoke. These words left Pei Yixian's face ashen, looking like they might come to blows any second. Lu Zhe's hands were both injured. he would be at a disadvantage in a fight. I quickly made some noise as I walked forward a few steps. Both men in the courtyard changed their expressions. Pei Yixian smiled at me first. "Cici, we're almost done drying the herbs, we'll need to get more." "It's fine, we don't need more. I've earned enough money." Originally I planned to save up 100 taels to repay the village chief for saving me before leaving. But now, there's no need. The debt is settled, we owe each other nothing. The 20 taels I have is enough for my first step toward leaving. After all, I have my medical skills. If I run out of money later, I can earn more as I travel. Ah, if only my arms weren't injured so I could help. Lu Zhe suddenly sat up on the lounge chair, sighing softly. Really must thank brother for his help. Brother is so capable, Cici and I will be blessed in the future. Pei Yixian narrowed his eyes, shooting a sharp glare at Lu Zhe. But Lu Zhe met his gaze unflinchingly, his aura no weaker. Lu Zhe. I hurried forward, standing between them. Your injuries are mostly healed. You should return to the military camp today. My brother's leg injury isn't better yet, I'll escort you back. Pei Yixian raised an eyebrow and curved her lips at Lu Zhe. Lu Zhe choked, took a breath, gave me a deep look, then turned and went back into the room. I couldn't help but shake my head. But arms wrapped around my waist from behind. Pei Yixian rested his chin on my shoulder and said softly, "Come back early." I lowered my eyes, not responding to those words. Go to the village chief's house in the evening. He has fixed your household registration. You're no longer registered as a slave, but as a farmer now. Remember to pick it up. Pei Yixian obediently nodded, all right. Lu Zhe led the way himself as I escorted him back to the military camp. There were many enemy spies at the border, so our military camp's location was extremely secretive. Without someone leading the way, ordinary people couldn't even find the camp entrance. But this time I got to see it. And even entered openly. Change this medicine every 2 days, remember to eat bland food. The wound must not get wet. Also don't do any strenuous exercise, to avoid reopening the wound. While helping Lu Zhe change his bandages, I carefully explained all the precautions. But after a while I didn't hear Lu Zhe say anything. Looking up, I saw him staring at me with deep eyes. Must you leave? Does our engagement mean nothing now? How can it mean anything, Lu Zhe? I untied the lover's knot at my waist, wanting to place it in his hand. But Lu Zhe clenched his fist, refusing to take it. I sighed helplessly. Will you abandon your ambitions and desert the army, never returning to battle? Or should I give up my aspirations, guard an empty house alone? Being a sheltered wife who waits day and night for your return? I lived that life for 10 years in my past life. I really don't want to live it again. I just want to be free. Lu Zhe's expression darkened. I smiled and reached to open his palm. For two people with opposing pursuits, the best ending is to forget each other in this vast world. Lu Zhe's fist suddenly loosened. But he didn't take the lover's knot. Instead he suddenly grasped my hand. They're not opposing, Cici. When the country is stable and no longer needs me to fight, I can accompany you to travel the world. As long as you're willing to wait. Lu Zhe's eyes were bright and dark. The sincerity in them was unmistakable, just like 4 years ago. I lowered my gaze, feeling guilty. This childhood sweetheart romance born of circumstance had a 30-year gap between us. I felt no love for him. Seeing me like this, Lu Zhe clicked his tongue, turning roguish. Even after you broke off our engagement, I waited 4 years for you. It's your turn to wait for me now, isn't it? Besides, we can't let this engagement be for nothing. I want special treatment. If someone ends up by your side, I must be the first choice. Only if I'm dead can you choose someone else. I was stunned. After a while, I smiled helplessly. Where did you learn such shameless tactics? Lu Zhe pursed his lips. Just tell me if you'll wait or not. I left the military camp the next morning. Lu Zhe's stubborn temper kicked in, and he didn't come to see me off. He said, we'll meet again sooner or later, no need for goodbyes. Just wait patiently for me to find you. Don't run too far. The path down the mountain was thick with green leaves. I looked down at the lover's knot still at my waist and smiled softly. I didn't notice that ahead on the path. Pei Yixian stood there like a god of death, radiating furious energy. Until I crashed into his chest, and he forcefully grabbed my neck. Qin Cici. How dare you? How dare you? Pei Yixian's eyes were bloodshot, his hand gripping my neck with extreme force. Yet it trembled violently. I kept hitting his hand, but it was no use. Breathing became increasingly difficult as my face started turning red. Just when I was about to suffocate, Pei Yixian yanked me toward him by the neck and frantically kissed me. In the gap between our lips meeting, I finally gasped in fresh air. My chest heaved dramatically as I greedily breathed. My lips were roughly bitten as Pei Yixian plundered me as if he wanted to devour me whole. Yet he released me when I could barely stand. Qin Cici, do you have a heart? While I waited eagerly for your return, I was told you sold me out. Is this the fresh start you wanted, a fresh start without me, is that it? Yes. I covered my neck, taking deep breaths. Looking at him with eyes devoid of warmth. How does it feel to be used? How does it feel to imagine a future with someone, only to find it was all lies? Isn't that exactly what you did to me in our past life? Pei Yixian's body trembled violently, the veins bulging on his clenched fist. His eyes showed the deepest pain that couldn't be resolved. Finally, with a bitter laugh. You're just taking advantage of the fact that I can't bear to hurt you. That's why you can wound me so recklessly. Cici, don't push me. You know I'm not a good person. His tone revealed a vulnerability never shown in either life. Yet it made me tense up defensively. Not daring to relax at all. Don't push me either. I just want to leave you. Pei Yixian threw his head back and laughed. But tears slid down from the corners of his eyes. He sniffled, wiped away the tears, and smiled brokenly. You really know how to make me want to die from pain, Cici. Why? I've already explained everything, so why do you still want to leave? Cici, don't you love me? How can you bear to abandon me? I know I was wrong, but I'm making amends, I'm changing, can't you wait for me? We've finally been reborn, can't we really erase the past and start over? I looked at the tears in the corners of his eyes and slowly shook my head. We can't. It can't be erased. Not all hardships and apologies can be exchanged for forgiveness. As I shook my head, Pei Yixian's gaze turned vicious. He suddenly let out a cold laugh, his lips curling into an extremely sinister smile. Fine, so you won't respond to kindness, huh? Cici, you're forcing me to act rashly. As Pei Yixian finished speaking, his gaze suddenly turned sharp. He raised his hand, about to strike at my neck. But my movement was faster than his. A cold glint flashed. The dagger I had been gripping plunged into his left shoulder. Blood gushed out frantically. If I had known you were also reborn, I should have killed you the day I bought you back. Pei Yixian revealed an agonized bitter smile. He decisively wiped his face, hatred appearing in his eyes. Am I really so unforgivable? In the last life, I gave you everything except freedom. I've done so much already, what more do you want from me? I just had no choice. Gave me everything? I couldn't help but laugh hearing this. This man was still going on about loving and protecting me? Pei Yixian, have you ever thought that the reason you imprisoned me in the outskirts, refusing to marry me, was because you couldn't face yourself? You never loved me as much as you claimed. You just couldn't let go, because my love and kindness towards you had no ulterior motives. Something others couldn't give you after you gained power. But similarly, you didn't dare face it, didn't dare bring me into your household. Because my existence would constantly remind you. The mighty regent was once a husband bought for 10 copper coins by a village woman. He once flattered and sweet-talked this lowly village woman to achieve his goals. So he couldn't let me go, yet couldn't face me either. He could only imprison me outside, not even giving me proper status. He didn't care if I felt humiliated. Nor did he care if I was willing to be confined. He took away my freedom as a person, betrayed my sincere feelings for him, trampled on my dignity and life, left me with nothing but breath in my life. Yet in the end, he had the audacity to say he gave me everything except freedom. Gripping the dagger tightly, I gave Pei Yixian a deep look. After you lose your freedom for 10 years, after you experience that daily despair and hopelessness, then come talk to me about forgiveness. Actually, what I meant was, there is absolutely no possibility of forgiveness. Our relationship isn't one that can continue peacefully even if we forgive each other. But Pei Yixian's eyes lit up like a drowning person who had finally grabbed hold of a floating log. He pressed his hand against his still bleeding chest and surprisingly smiled. All right, 10 years. Later, I never saw Pei Yixian again. Nor did I see Lu Zhe. I traveled around practicing medicine, roaming mountains and rivers freely. As if afraid, I never stayed too long in any one place. But in the 4th year of my journey, I came to fated Union Bridge in Springshire Town. The bridge was full of red ribbons tied by lovers making wishes. Some were new, some so old their color had faded, making the writing illegible. I stood on the bridge from dawn until dark. Until the moonlight was clear and even those releasing flower lanterns below had gone home satisfied. Only then did I let out a soft sigh. Lu Zhe, I kept my promise. You can't blame me anymore. The 4-year appointment was my special consideration for Lu Zhe. Before leaving the military camp that day, we agreed to meet at fated Union Bridge in Springshire in 4 years. If by then the war had ended and he was still alive, we would travel together. Today, he didn't come. Lowering my head silently, I looked at the faded red rope love knot at my waist, my eyes trembling. I'd rather believe the Northern War hadn't ended yet. Then consider the second possibility. Turning around, I walked down the bridge step by step. Clop, clop, clop. The sound of galloping hooves came from afar. I turned back suddenly to see Lu Zhe, in black fitted clothes, riding towards me. Bold and unrestrained. The horse stopped, Lu Zhe dismounted, standing at the foot of the bridge, breathing heavily. He shook his head at me speechlessly. You'll be the death of me, Qin Cici. Next time we make an appointment, I really need to ask first. Did you know there are 12 bridges in Springshire City, all nicknamed Fated Union Bridge? I came here almost died trying to find you today. Standing on the bridge, I looked down at the sweat on his forehead. And couldn't help but smile. Later, much later. I can't remember if it was 10 years later, or how many years had passed. Lu Zhe and I rode horses northward, planning to see the snow-capped mountains. When passing through the outskirts of the capital, a blurry figure began following behind us at some point. Not too far, not too close, just following along. Never coming forward, nor falling back. If he wants to follow, let him follow. Lu Zhe held me tighter and planted a kiss on my lips. Isn't it nice to have another witness to our happiness? I tilted my head to look at him. You know who it is? Lu Zhe chuckled. Don't you know? Well, I did know. But it wasn't important. Speaking of which, he's such a liar. Lu Zhe suddenly added. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. How so? Saying he was your first man made me jealous for so long. But in the end, it was clearly me. I lowered my gaze and touched my nose, looking embarrassed. Are we still going or not? Yes, yes, yes. Taking my dear wife on an adventure.